Here we go.
Welcome to the Confirmed Epic Podcast, the official podcast of the epicreview.com, where we always deserve it, but the universe rarely serves it. Joining me today is
Jerry Reed, also known as Barbecue 17.
as well as,
Gina Wiltshire, also known as Gina Beaner.
and of course, I'm the real Brad Bell, and it is good to be back with you guys.
Good to have you back,
Yeah,
Brad.
we're glad you're back.
Thank you. As always, you can email any questions, concerns, or comments to thepicreview@gmail.com. Remember to like us on Facebook for breaking epic news daily. And let's just go ahead and get right into it, guys. Jerry Reed, what have you been checking out this week?
All right. Well, I have been going back and reading through one of my favorite comic series of all time, which is Jack Kirby's Fourth World Omnibus.
And this is the stuff where he pretty much introduces like Orion and Darkseid.
Orion, Darkseid.
The new gods.
Yeah, all of the new gods characters. He reintroduces, the new Newsboy Legion, the Forever People. The whole series starts off in an issue of the comic book Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, which, was one of those Superman spinoffs that was still around in the 70s. It wasn't selling well. And so Jack Kirby took it and just went to crazy places. I've actually had the first 3 of the Fourth World Omnibus books for a couple years now, but I finally just got the 4th one this week, so I get to finish
Jared,
everything.
do you know, is this when Jack Kirby had left Marvel to go to DC,
yes,
correct?
He had left Marvel to go to DC at this point, and it was a really big deal. I mean, they hyped his stuff, and his stuff was really popular for a while, but if you read it, and this is about it's amazing. I mean, it is... Jack Kirby is in a league of his own.
Yes.
It is a mixture. I mean, he does the art, he does, everything except the inking and the lettering in this book. And they are absolutely amazing.
He writes it?
He writes it and does the art for it.
Very impressive. 2 things I had no idea. I didn't know Jack Kirby wrote this, and you just revealed to me, I can't believe I didn't know this, because I am a pretty big comic book fan, that Jack Kirby invented Darkseid. I mean,
as far as I know,
he did. He did. Yeah, I double checked that. He did.
It pops up in this issue that these 2 guys, Simeon and Moncari, are looking at their screen, and you see that first image of Darkseid's face up close, and I mean, it's so cool to see that.
So Jack Kirby revolutionizes the comic book industry by adding movement and all these things to his drawings while at Marvel, and he designs all of with the exception of Spider-Man, he designs pretty much the look for every Marvel character we know and love. Thor, the Hulk, Iron Man, all of those. They were designed in Avengers by Jack Kirby.
Yep.
And then he kind of has this falling out with Stan Lee, kind of this falling out with Marvel, goes over to DC and introduces the biggest baddie in the DC universe.
DC pretty much just let Jack Kirby do what he wanted to do.
By this point, he deserved that.
Yeah, they were just giving him books that weren't selling well, and they're like, listen, let's see what you can do with it. And he was, he's turning stuff around. Now, I will say that after a while, some of his stuff got... for mainstream readers, and Brad, you'll love this, Grant Morrison writes the introduction to the first book and talks about how, like, all his, I think it's like his hippie uncle in the 70s.
I'm out. Forget
loved Jack Kirby. But Grant Morrison says, when I first picked this stuff up, it was too weird for me.
And that was before it was on psychedelics.
Yeah,
though,
but
so.
now, Grant Morrison, is obviously an adult, was talking about how much he appreciates and enjoys the work of Jack Kirby.
And I hear one of his favorite pastimes is eating shrooms and enjoying the Jack Kirby omnibus.
Really? Is that what Grant Morrison does?
No, but he does enjoy psychedelics in his writing and while reading comics now. And amazingly, you bring up Grant Morrison. He used to be a straight edge guy. When he wrote,
I know he was very straight edge. And
Arkham.
Sleep deprivation to
exactly.
write Arkham Asylum.
Yeah, you would think the person who wrote this book is like really messed up on something, at least alcohol.
Man, Kirby just had an imagination, and I mean, I think I like what you said earlier that his artwork is it's very raw, and it has motion to it, and that's hard to explain until you really look at his
An
work.
example is Thor's hammer. You can see it spinning.
Yes.
You know, another great example is a lot of people call them the Kirby dots. Especially when he draws galactic stuff.
Yes.
For example, the Silver Surfer. You just kind of see the atmosphere. Even you see that it is in space just by looking at it
and what's surrounding it.
Exactly. It's hard to explain
Super
unless you're looking at it.
But most of these are available in, not the nice hardcovers now, but in paperbacks. But I mean, if you love comics, if you're just ever interested in really wanting to read something that is maybe, comic books in its purest form. I mean, comic books are a great place today. We have all different genres. We have, mature,
photorealistic art.
Photorealistic art, mature, storylines that are developed over years and years.
And planned years and years.
But if you want to read something that is just comic books at its best, at its most pure form. Like if you boiled comic books down and you just had what was left, read Jack Kirby's Fourth World Omnibus.
As far as just art, Jack's a good writer, but he's maybe the greatest comic book artist of all time. He laid the foundation and paved a way for everybody who drew in comics from that point forward. And just drawing in general, as far as, like I said, drawing characters with motion, which is why it is so heartbreaking that when the fallout between he and Stan Lee, when Jack died, Jack Kirby's estate didn't get anything, kind of royalties from those characters.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, face it, the look of the characters are half of what they are.
Yeah. I think the best thing you can ever say, I personally think the best thing you can say about an artist is when you can look at their work and say, that's them. I mean, there are some artists that are just automatically
Jim Lee comes to mind.
Jim Lee's very recognizable. The Hildebrandt brothers, if you look at something by the Hildebrandt brothers, I mean, you automatically know it's them. Mike Mignola.
Yes.
I mean, you automatically recognize the style. Jack Kirby, there are so many things that just tip it off that that's Jack Kirby.
Alex Ross, the paintings,
Alex Ross has
from
the
Kingdom
very,
Come.
has a very recognizable style.
Exactly.
I know some artists like to try different things and really experiment. But Jack Kirby stuff, just I can't recommend it highly enough. Although my favorite Jack Kirby thing is the Etrigan the Demon series. That's fantastic.
Did he create Etrigan as well?
Yep.
Who was a huge character in Justice League Dark and will be in the upcoming Guillermo del Toro Justice League Dark film. Etrigan's going to appear in that. Also, Jerry
he's in Demon Knights as well.
Yes.
He was when I stopped reading it. But
Jerry brings up, this is the Jack Kirby kind of when he was breaking onto the scene in DC.
Yes.
After he had done all of his Marvel stuff, and it is great work. But Marvel has just recently released the Avengers Volume 1 Omnibus, and it's only $60, and it is absolutely huge. And it's all Jack Kirby's Avengers stuff.
And the best thing is, I mean, once again, it is looking at the way that he writes some of these pitches. I mean, that's kind of the thing about this period of comic books is they are trying to sell you on the book. And the cover or the last page where it would say stuff, and it says, I mean, this is just the end of one of the issues. It says, "Nothing will stop us, readers. Don't miss our next issue. Not if you want to make the wildest, fastest, most exciting run over the Zoomway." I mean, it really is trying to sell you on these issues. It's sensationalist. It's fantastic. I mean, some of them are just hilarious, and you really just have to read this to understand it. It's hard to tell somebody. It's one of those things it's hard to describe to someone just how different and unique it is.
Jerry, if I had to put you on the spot, you bring up Jack Kirby, and obviously considered by many the greatest comic book artist of all time. Who do you think is the all-time greatest comic book artist? Or who is your favorite?
Gosh. Mike Mignola is definitely one of my favorites. I mean,
Yes.
he's just one of those people that, once again, a writer, and an artist, and can't think of anything that he's put out that just didn't, just speak to me. I love him. I love his art.
I'll give you mine while you're thinking
Okay,
about
go ahead,
some
throw it
more.
out there.
Modern artist is Steve McNiven, but if I'm going all-time favorite, definitely John Romita.
Okay.
I believe he just gave Spider-Man, Mary Jane, Gwen the look that kind of will define them forever.
Mhm.
Just how he drew those. It was the first kind of the start. It was kind of photorealistic art at its very beginning, which is not as refined as the stuff we see now.
Yeah.
But he's definitely up there. He's not as legendary as Jack Kirby, but if you were building a Mount Rushmore of comic book artists, John Romita Sr. would definitely be on there.
Carmine Infantino, developed the look of a lot of the Silver Age Batman stuff, sort of hand in hand with the look of the 1966 Batman series. I mean, his stuff is brilliant, and once again, it has that true comic book quality to it. Mark Buckingham, who's, does Fables, does a couple other series, just everything always looks good. His art serves the story. Sometimes with a lot of modern comic book artists, the art's great and it's all over the place. It's really impressive, but it doesn't go along with the story always. The art makes it harder to understand what's going on. Mark Buckingham really writes in such a way that it helps to tell the story.
And nothing works better than when you have that perfect artist-writer combo and kind of to throw some love out to Mark Baglier and Brian Michael Bendis on Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's a good team.
There's so many great teams. I mean, Stan and Jack Kirby are the best, probably.
Robert Kirkman and Charlie Adler, Walking Dead, how many issues have those two guys put out?
Is he the current artist on Walking Dead? Because I'm reading through the trades now. I'm not caught up to the current run.
Yeah, he's been the artist since maybe the 5th or 6th issue.
That's crazy.
Him and Kirkman have been putting that out for a while.
When you go over 100 issues on a book as an artist, it's really not. It's rare in comics today.
Yeah. Sometimes Fables has like a different artist that steps in or a guest artist, but Bill Willingham and Mark Buckingham have really consistently put out a great book. And I'll tell you who does some of the most beautiful art, and the name just escapes me.
What did he draw?
Batwoman.
J.H. Williams.
J.H. Williams.
Yeah, J.H. Williams III.
Consistently the most beautiful book of the New 52. It is gorgeous.
How he isn't handicapped by panels. He just lets everything flow, and it is amazing.
Yes, it is amazing to look at.
The sad thing is, I heard something about J.H. Williams III. He does not do conventions on the East Coast at all. He's doing Asbury Park Comic-Con in New Jersey next year. Mm-hmm. That's going to be his first East Coast convention in forever, so we won't see him around here. But if you have a chance, he's amazing.
Yeah.
All right, Gina.
It's hard to talk about comic art and not have, not be able to like flip it open and say, look at this, because that's the fun of it. So
exactly. All right, Jerry had to get that last point in. Gina, let's get into what you've been checking out this week. I know you're not the biggest comic book reader. We've kind of got you introduced into the medium, but we'll go into your world of video games here. So talk a little bit about Bioshock Infinite.
Sure. So last weekend I was finally able to get a hold of Bioshock Infinite, and I played through it in pretty quickly. I'd say it probably took me about 3 days of kind of part-time play. So kind of casually playing it for 3 days, and I got through it. That was a little disappointing.
That's kind of short.
Yeah.
Jerry, you played the other two Bioshock games.
Yeah.
Just real quick, how long were they to beat, playtime-wise, hour-wise?
I don't remember hour-wise. I felt like Bioshock was a pretty average length game. I mean, from what I've played, I don't know that it took me any less time to beat Bioshock than it took me to beat, Tomb Raider or anything else. I played on normal difficulty, and I found 70 out of 80 of like the voxophones in my first playthrough. Gina, you played on.
Well, I'm really story oriented, and I don't want to get frustrated with having to restart over and over and over. So I typically play every game through first on easy.
Yeah.
Just because I'm more plot driven and less like.
She's a lazy gamer. Is what she's saying.
So our
Sure.
experiences were we're a little bit different in the game.
So Jerry beat it on hard in 2 hours, and it took Gina 3 days on easy. I'm just kidding.
It
Gina,
probably took me. I think I beat it. I bought it on a Friday evening, and I think I beat it on a Tuesday night, maybe Tuesday and Wednesday night. So
for you, it was a Tuesday.
Yeah, for me, it was Tuesday. I think it was even a day or so where I didn't even play it at all.
Yeah, I got it on a Friday night and I finished it on Sunday.
So Gina, does it live up to the hype? Is it one of the best shooters of all time, like they say?
I really liked it. It doesn't beat out Mass Effect 3, for me personally.
But she is a Mass Effect fangirl.
Yeah, I love Mass Effect.
I believe at one point you said you liked it just as much or even more than Star Wars.
She said more than Star Wars.
I said just as much, maybe more than Star Wars.
So that tells you how much she loves Mass Effect.
Yeah, I did. Well, and partially why I liked Mass Effect so much was because of it was very reminiscent of Star Wars for me.
She's being paid by BioWare. That's what it tells me. She's on their payroll.
I wish.
A lot of gamers today, they play. You're more story driven. I am too when I play a video game. But tell me about the online in this game. Have you worked with that at all?
I haven't done it at all. Jerry,
is there an online component?
There's no online component.
Okay, see, I did not know that.
There's no online component to Bioshock Infinite. Which was probably a good decision on their part. Bioshock, the original Bioshock, did not have an online component. Bioshock 2 added in an online component. Bioshock 2 was done by a different team.
Yeah.
It wasn't done by the same team that did Bioshock and Bioshock Infinite. And frankly, unless you are setting out, for an online game, unless you're setting out and saying, we're going to produce something that's going to be a Call of Duty or a Halo 4 or, Battlefield or Grand Theft Auto, your online component is not going to be that
usually
huge.
lacking.
Yeah.
You really, really, really have to build a game around an online experience these days to rival what other people are doing.
I agree.
Tomb Raider was one of those that Tomb Raider was fantastic. I'm going to go out and say I actually enjoyed Tomb Raider more than Bioshock Infinite.
Okay.
But they're both very, very, very good games. Tomb Raider had an online component.
Yeah.
It was messy. I mean, you're talking Tomb Raider was a perfectly polished, excellent experience.
It's
Everything
just like an add-in that they're like, let's just throw this in at the,
And I mean, you can understand that you want, they're trying to extend the life of the game, extend people, playing it, but a lot of times it really doesn't add anything to the experience. Bioshock doesn't have any online component, though. It will have downloadable content, but I don't think any of that's out yet.
Yeah.
Now, this is a shooter, but one game I kind of found that balance of strong online, strong story, and it is a shooter. What was the Gears of War franchise?
Yeah.
I thought they were pretty balanced games.
I'll agree. I mean, I enjoyed the Gears of War. I enjoyed the Gears of War universe enough that I have read some of the novels.
Yeah.
I mean, I really do like, you're right, that they do have enough actual character and plot and things happening there.
And the movie actually is in the works. They got a writer. They've
really
said it's been greenlit actually. So that was on the Facebook page a few days ago.
Okay.
So anyway, I would put Bioshock below Mass Effect, maybe on par with LA Noire, that kind of thing. But see, all my games are very story oriented. I don't want this huge massive world where, I have to walk for days in order to find something. I want
a straight through path.
Straight through path, go here, go there, learn the story, interact with characters. That's why I think Mass Effect was so great, because it was the beautiful melding of go here, go there, and choice. Your choice
Was Mass
influenced.
Effect that linear? As linear?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, Bioshock Infinite is pretty linear as well.
Yeah.
It has some little asides where you can explore something or learn something different. A lot of the story is told through these recordings that you find.
Yeah, the
So
world
if you're not
is
looking
very.
for 'em-
There aren't hardly any. I don't think there was a single like typical cutscene. I don't think other than the Ascension, basically.
I mean, it's all told through through first person. It doesn't ever pull the camera, out of the player's first person view. There were a couple places where you kind of lose control of your character, just for a second,
And that's for massive plot, but it's not. It's that's one of the things that I loved about this game, is that you're very much so learning the story through interacting with the environment.
Mm-hmm.
You're listening to voxophones, you're looking at those kinetoscopes or whatever.
Kinetoscopes, yeah.
They're called, you're hearing conversations. I spent probably 2 hours in the first beginning of the game, because I wanted to see how much I could learn. So I would stop and listen to every conversation that I heard.
Yeah.
And it was really very detailed, very well put together.
Well written.
Well written. Oh my gosh, and the voice acting was
voice acting was very good.
So it wasn't like Oblivion or any of those games where it's like the same person every voice. So Skyrim.
No. Skyrim has a lot more voices than Oblivion.
Okay.
Oblivion really did have a lot of the same
I played
actors
Oblivion. I didn't play Skyrim. So.
Yeah, no, the voice acting is fantastic. And you really get to the point where you are fully invested in these characters. And can I just say, I loved Elizabeth in this game.
I'll say that.
And
I loved Elizabeth too.
Yeah, there was lots of talk around.
Call me Elizabeth. No, I'm just kidding. So.
Do you keep her figure by your bedstand?
No, I do
at
not.
Night?
Yeah, that'd be creepy.
But speaking of Elizabeth, through like the first half of the game, she doesn't look anything like the figure, and like all the
see from the promotional
photos that
art
you've
and
seen,
stuff,
and so I'm like, well, did they just get this wrong or something? Because I mean, the first 2 days she was in a different outfit, she had different hair, so it was interesting, and I liked how her changing of her outfit and her hair was a big significant change in who she was. It changed, her entire character through an experience changed, and so her outward appearance had changed as well.
So Gina, if you had to give it a rating overall, what would you rate it?
Great and a half.
Great and a half. So nearly epic. What about you, Jerry?
I think I would go with great and a half as well. My issues weren't with gameplay at all, and not even with what the story did. It was just, I didn't think it was as well crafted as the original Bioshock. There were a lot of things I liked better. Technically, it's a better game in terms of the gameplay aspects, control,
The graphics are stunning.
Yeah, the graphics are really good.
My absolute favorite part is at the very beginning when he is shot up in the rocket into Columbia, the ascension, and it counts the miles above as he goes, and then at the very top it's like it says ascension, 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 hallelujah, and it's just like this really epic moment of the game. Like after that happened, I literally went, wow, that was
out.
I did. I
Overwhelmed.
completely geeked
Overwhelmed.
out. It was great. And then, well, Jerry, I'll let you finish what you were saying because I've got other.
I don't know
stuff
what
to
I
say.
was saying.
About
saying,
what you liked and didn't like.
So yeah, I mean, technically I liked everything. Loved the story. My only thing was the story at the end becomes told in very much
exposition.
Yeah, just exposition.
You're not really doing much.
It's
you're
a bunch
walking.
of talking points.
Yeah.
And that's not bad, but for a game that has prided itself on telling the story throughout, interaction and action, it just kind of feels like it throws everything at you in the last, 10, 15 minutes of the game. And I think that could have been spread out with some more
Yeah,
actual
I agree.
gameplay.
So it kind
in
of fell
place.
apart in the third act a little.
Yeah.
Fell apart is not the right word for it, but
It just wasn't as strong as
it
the third
wasn't as
act.
effective of a delivery
Yes.
as it could have
Yeah.
been.
And even, like, there are paths that you can take at the end, and I went back and I played the end twice just to kind of help my mind wrap around it, and it doesn't matter what path you take,
Yeah.
the ending is the same. So there was that too. It's kind of
Which
like,
for a game of that caliber, I mean, that's understandable.
yeah. I will say another thing that I was a little disappointed in were the heavy hitters, the Handyman, the Siren, the Boys of Silence, and the what was the third one?
Flamethrower guys?
No.
Oh, the Patriots.
Firemen, the Patriot,
Oh, the Patriots.
the motorized
yeah.
Patriots.
Yeah.
They were not as hard as I thought they would be, and maybe that's just because I was playing
That's
on
because
easy.
you're playing on easy.
But everybody was talking about how absolutely difficult they were going to be, and I mean, if that's how they are on easy, then they were just it should not have been that easy.
So it sounds like this is one of those very good kind of end of the generation game, of a console's life cycle kind of game where it kind of pushed it to the limits then.
Yeah, it was really good, and the music in it is absolutely superb.
Yeah.
There's a great video of the voice cast singing a song, doing a recording. Booker, the guy who played Booker, is playing the guitar, and the girl who played Elizabeth, they're both singing the May the Circle Be Unbroken,
Yes.
or Will the Circle Be Unbroken.
Which was a very powerful, effective scene in the
Yes.
game.
Yeah. Are you talking about the very beginning where he's walking through the...
No, when you find the guitar and you play it in first person. Did you not?
No, I didn't...
There is a scene, try not to spoil much for people, but there's a scene when everything is going crazy, when the revolution's happening at one point.
Yeah.
And you go down into this one bar, and there's like a little kid hiding under the stairs, and Elizabeth's talking to him, and she'll give him an apple if she's near him or something.
I totally went in that bar, and that didn't happen.
And you go down, and there's a
Because
guitar.
you were playing on easy.
And
I'm wondering, because
if
we've
you-
had this conversation multiple times about things you've experienced and
Yeah.
things I didn't.
If
And-
you go back and you pick up the guitar, Booker can interact with it, and he'll pick up the guitar in first person and start playing, and Elizabeth will start singing,
Yeah.
and it's a really cool scene.
So I guess that scene in the game is then a live recording, a video recording
It
of
could
them
be.
doing it in the studio, and it's really good. And then make sure that you stay to the end of the credits.
Yes.
There is an epilogue at the end of the credits, and you definitely want to see it.
So I think that's just about going to wrap it up for Bioshock Infinite. I'm going to get into something I've been checking out. This actually got me to come back a week early to the podcast.
All right, let's hear it,
I
Brad.
was so pumped about talking about this film. I was originally scheduled to come back for the Iron Man 3 review, like Jerry said, on the review before the Masters of the Universe review. So, let's get into it. Michael Bay's Pain and Gain. I've gone on record to say that I'm a Michael Bay fan. I enjoy pretty much all of his films, with maybe the exception of Transformers 2. But even I find a little pleasure in some parts of that movie. Armageddon is admittedly my third favorite film of all time, and I take a lot of flack for it. And I just can find, as I
And
said,
rightly so.
Okay, rightly
Rightly
so,
so.
according to Jerry. Jerry, what was it you said about Armageddon, about the asteroid, who should have been? I remember what you said.
I think I said that I really didn't like the way it ended because, Bruce Willis stayed behind on the asteroid instead of Ben Affleck. And at the time I said they should have left Ben Affleck because he was only going to go ahead and make Geely, while Bruce Willis would go on to make good movies like The Sixth Sense
And now Ben
It's-
Affleck's an Academy Award winning director.
Exactly. I was thinking about that the other day as I was reading your review of Pain and Gain, and I'm like,
And Bruce Willis is just a prick who treats Kevin Smith like
yeah,
crap.
maybe they should have,
But
It's a good
anyway,
thing, man.
back to Pain and Gain.
Who
So
could they have left? They could have left somebody.
I was maybe Steve Buscemi or something.
No, absolutely not Steve Buscemi.
He had went crazy at that point, so maybe Owen Wilson. He may have been dead at that point. I can't recall, but let's
Yeah,
get back
I've
to
seen
Pain
it
and Gain.
once. All right.
So I had to go see this movie by myself because I couldn't really talk anybody else into going to see it with me.
You didn't ask me.
I went to a matinee. Sorry, Gina.
When did you go?
I went to a matinee earlier this week.
What day?
Monday.
Oh, I couldn't have went. So.
But you had gone on record to say, yeah, that's not something I'm really interested in.
If it would have been a cheap showing, I probably would have went, though, just to...
I just want to set up Pain and Gain without any spoilers.
Let's set it up.
This kind of sets up the first half of the film. Basically, it's Mark Wahlberg, The Rock, and Anthony Mackie. Mark Wahlberg gets this job at Sun Gym, and he basically turns this gym around. He's a personal trainer. He does things like giving strippers free memberships. He turns it into a very big spot in the 1990s. Now, remember, all this is based on a true story.
Okay, true story.
He's friends with Anthony Mackie, who's also, they're like best friends. They bodybuild. Anthony Mackie's character works at like a taco stand and hates his life. Mark Wahlberg does pretty good personal training, you know. They meet The Rock. He comes in. He's out of jail. He's this super Christian Jesus guy now, who had, you know, been sober from being an alcoholic and getting off cocaine. Well, this guy comes in, Victor Kershaw, and he is a client that Mark Wahlberg takes on the train.
And he's played by Tony Shalhoub?
That's right, Tony Shalhoub. And
Monk.
Monk, exactly. So he comes in and he's like telling about how he has all these assets in the Caymans and all this. And actually... Mark Wahlberg goes to this kind of self-help seminar that Ken Jeong leads, Mr. Chow from the Hangover movies, and he's on Community too as Chang. He's in a lot of stuff now, and it's this kind of self-motivation. Don't be a don'ter, be a doer. If you deserve
Don't be a don'ter, be a doer?
Yeah, that's his big thing. If you deserve it, the universe will serve it.
If you can dream it, you can do it.
One of those kind of 1990s... you know, get motivated kind of things.
If you build it, they will come.
If you...
That's Field of Dreams.
Yeah, if you get up off your butt and work for it, you work for the American dream, you can accomplish anything you want to, which is pretty much a commentary on society in the 1990s.
Yeah. Well, like I've talked about a lot of times when I was in, you know, third grade, fourth grade, that would have been in the, you know, second grade, we would have these posters in our classrooms that had this like massive beachside house, and they'd have a garage that'd have a Ferrari and a Lamborghini and a Porsche. I mean, it had
it's like
everything.
Motivation, graduation.
Yeah, and it would say justification for a higher education.
Okay. Yeah.
Like if you go get a higher education, you go to college, you're gonna have a car with, you know, this, you know, you have a garage with this many cars in
Which
it.
that may be kind of pushing it, but in the 1990s, you go to college, get an education, you're gonna get a good job.
It symbolized what everyone thought at the time.
Yeah. Which is
the mindset.
Which was one of Michael Bay's greatest accomplishments in this film. He was able to capture the mentality of the 90s, but also the look and feel, and it was very odd.
Michael Bay still lives in the mentality of the 90s.
Yeah, with Bad Boys 1 and 2 and Armageddon. So, now he's got the Transformers movies now, guys, alright? But anyways, I was saying to Jerry, it was weird to me to see a movie set in the 90s, because this is the first one I can think where we've seen a film set in the 90s. Maybe I'm missing one.
Was it filmed in the 90s?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This is set there in 2013.
Are very, you know, like you've got tons of movies that go back to the 80s and period pieces.
Or 70s or 60s now.
The 80s have been more recent that we've seen movies set in the 80s.
Yeah, but we've seen it a couple of times.
Yeah,
you know?
we've seen it, but it's been a more recent thing. The 90s thing might just start happening, because before you set it in the 90s, like really make a 90s period piece, people have to have some kind of nostalgia for the period.
Yeah, I think that's very true.
And I think it's time for that 90s nostalgia, because think about just the mentality and escape back to a better time.
Yeah.
To where, man, remember that? You would graduate high school and you could go get a job and have a family and get cars. So basically, Mark Wahlberg decides he's ready to live the American dream, so to speak. He does this by kidnapping Victor Kershaw and getting him to sign over all of his assets, and how this all took place in real life. Victor Kershaw is a fictional name created to protect the identity of the original person. Everybody else is their real names. So he gets the guy that runs the gym is a notary. So he notarizes all this stuff. He bribes him to notarize it. And I should go ahead and say, I guess, spoilers for Pain and Gain.
Spoilers for Pain and Gain.
But it's all based on true life events, which I didn't know a thing about till seeing this film. So I'm watching this whole first act, or first half of the film, and I'm loving it, Jerry. I mean, the rapport between Mackie, The Rock, and Wahlberg is awesome. They're not really going to harm this guy. They're just going to take from the rich and make their life better. They're not going to kill him. So finally they decide that they're going to... Rock gets really close with the guy. He can't do this, okay? Mm-hmm. And what's really funny is they're keeping this guy in a warehouse captive in the back of a sex store. So this is like Michael Bay thought it would be cute to put all kinds of dildos and blow up dolls and anal beads and just all this stuff in here.
If you put those in, if you'd written that in the review, that would probably bump up our Google hits.
Yeah, probably would have. So
okay.
But anyway, so they're torturing him. They get him to sign over all of his assets. He gets released. He's in the hospital. He's broke. Nobody believes a word he said. Because they find this, they're like, sir, we found this, and this giant dildo as long as most people's arm. You think that we're really going to believe a word you say? So he hires this private investigator, played by Ed Harris. And he's like, okay, I'll look into it. Mark Wahlberg's moving into his house. He's living in this mansion. He's like, they pulled all this off in real life. And this whole first half of the movie, you're like, it's kind of messed up, but it's kind of... Who hasn't thought about that? Who hasn't been jealous of somebody who's had more they haven't been? I deserve that. I deserve that. They went out and took it. And they did it in a very entertaining way. So we get to the second half of the film. The Rock, Anthony Mackie and Mark Wahlberg do pretty well. Yeah. Okay, they manage their assets well. The Rock gets hooked back on cocaine and blows through his money. And so they decide we have to do another job. So they try to con this guy, cannot remember his name. He is a porn king in the 90s. Started a big adult entertainment industry and became franchise. Okay. And became a multi-millionaire. So basically, he and his wife are going to invest. Well, basically he's talking to Mark Wahlberg and his character, and he's like, I'm not really wanting to invest in this. He said, no, excuse me. He says, I will invest in it, but I need, no offense, but I need business people to look over it.
What are they investing in?
Some idea they have for some company. It was just some bull crap. I can't even remember off the top of my head. But they get in a kind of a shoving match at at Mackie's house. And a weight set crushes a guy's skull in. And it showed this. It's R-rated. It's pretty graphic. And the wife comes in. She was there too. Starts freaking out. So they start inducing her with horse say it, Jared.
Horse tranquilizers.
Yeah, sorry. I'm trying to... Horse tranks. Let's just say that. I'm trying to get that out. So... And then they say, give us the combination to your safe so they can go get the money. So they go to do that. They get in, they get the money, they get back. By this time, he's tranked her so much, Mackie's character, she's dead. She's OD'd on horse tranks. They have two dead people.
That's a way to go.
So they're like, we got to get rid of the bodies.
Why do they have horse tranks just sitting around?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Now, they were both big into buying steroids and stuff like that, so I figured they picked it up from a steroid dealer. But anyway, we get to... They have horse tranks, I'm sure.
I guess they do.
I don't know.
Sounds like they have everything.
But anyway, so they said, we got to cover this up. And they're getting investigated by Ed Harris's character at this point. So basically, I know I'm giving the whole plot of this movie, but it's important.
We didn't see it.
They didn't see it. And it's important to discuss what we're going to discuss here in a minute. So they said, we need to dismember the bodies. So they go buy an electric chainsaw at Home Depot. It's a piece. They go to cut the lady. Her hair gets stuck in it. it won't cut her arm well. So they go to Home Depot, take it back. It's a kid, a teenager working the counter. There's like specks of blood on it and a string of hair here or there. But she's like, okay, I'll switch it out. So it's not funny, Jerry.
It's not funny. I'm sorry. I'm not
so
laughing.
they switch it out or whatever. And they go back, they dismember the bodies. Rock grills the people's hands on the grill to get rid of their fingerprints.
Yeah.
Oh my
They chop
gosh.
them up, put them in canisters, put them out somewhere off the coast of Florida. And,
Yeesh.
exactly.
It sounds like
Exactly.
something out of Scarface.
It does, but this all happened in real life. So basically,
I think Scarface did too.
Ed Harris, it did. Is that a true story?
I don't know.
I'm not sure. Ed Harris,
I don't think
he
so.
gets to the bottom of this. He goes to the police. He exposes them. But by this time, it's too late. He had warned the, Miami PD that they were going to probably get hungry and kill again, but they didn't listen. So they get busted. They convict them. Basically, one of the main reasons they get busted, they're on trial, and Rock spills his beans. He feels sorry about it. He's gotten back to closer to God again. He spills them both out, rats them both out. He gets 15 years, and they get like life out there. I believe they got sentenced to death. I can't remember if they're still alive or not. So it hits me at the end of this film. There's a really, really well done kind of closing montage with the credits with Gangster's Paradise playing.
That's 90s right there.
Yeah, definitely a great song to symbolize the 1990s. And it would have The Rock's character and then the real life, the guy who committed the crime, and Wahlberg and Mackie and so on and so on. And then we get to, it's showing them like evidence photos of them recovering the barrels, and then it's showing them, it shows the receipt from Home Depot, like a photocopy of the receipt. And it just hits me, it's like, I was entertained laughing at these guys, enjoying their back and forth the first hour of this film. And then it's like, holy crap, these guys were murderers, thugs. And I feel like Michael Bay painted them in a way just to simply be entertaining. I understand that sometimes, like I mentioned to Jerry, Zodiac, that was entertainment. It was informative, but they took a serious tone, which these things were serious murders in real life, the Zodiac killings. Where I feel like this, yes, these guys were apparently kind of knuckleheads, but they almost made this real life movie about these murders into a comedic action movie. And even though I was entertained, probably to the point of rating this the first hour of the film, I ended up giving it a crap.5. So Jerry, I believe you disagree with my argument, but you were going to play devil's advocate a bit.
I am. I haven't seen this movie. I don't know that I'll ever see this movie.
You should watch it.
I might watch the movie.
Just for...
I am largely playing devil's advocate here, but I am arguing an argument that I'm going to argue from a thing that I actually believe.
Okay.
Not having seen the movie. Sometimes it seems like to really shock you, to really make you realize how terrible something is, or how bad something is, or how bizarre a situation is, you come at it from a point where you get sympathy from the audience. Where you get them to at least relate to the character or find the character likable, and then you turn things around. One of the movies that comes out to my mind is Dog Day Afternoon with Al Pacino.
Which I've never seen, but I know is an all-time
It's
classic.
a great movie. I think it's based...
Is it based on a true
I
story?
think
That
it-
was my question.
I think it
'Cause
is.
if this wasn't based on a true story, Jerry, I would totally agree with your
Yeah.
concept. Totally. But we're talking about, imagine being these people's family and seeing this, of the people murdered. Now, I know one guy was like a porn kingpin. Still, he has family. Okay, it just seems like...
It is loosely based on a true story.
Dog Day.
Yeah, Dog Day Afternoon.
Okay.
But let's think about something like Bonnie and Clyde. is there not something there? And I'm not arguing the job that Michael Bay did with this movie or not, because I haven't seen it. I can't judge. But I think that there could be something said for someone making a movie and saying, look, here's what happened. Here's three pretty normal guys who latched onto something and they took it down a road, and you're like, one minute you're like, oh man, these could be my buddies and we could be hanging out, and then all of a sudden it goes to a dark place and you realize, wow, that's how fast somebody can fall. Two of the creepiest books I've ever read. One was the autobiography of David Koresh's mother, who Vernon Howell, who was the leader of the Branch Davidians in Waco, Texas. The tragedy that happened in Waco in the 90s. You read her biography or autobiography, and you're like, oh my gosh, she sounds like just this normal, sweet, little country lady. I mean, just reading it, I just pictured a friend of mine's mother in this role. And she's telling about him and all the stuff he did, and then you're like, wow, and it leads to what happens. The second is a great graphic novel that's called My Friend Dahmer. It's about Jeffrey Dahmer, who killed a bunch of people. Serial killer.
And Jeffrey Dahmer was famously like a everyday guy. Worked
Yeah.
at the chocolate factory. He worked at a chocolate factory, a Hershey's chocolate factory.
Did he?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Of course, you didn't know that?
No.
Yes, he
Okay.
did. I don't know if that was in the graphic novel.
It's
but
not.
he
This
did.
takes place when he's younger, but it's
Okay.
about him growing up as a teenager, and he's awkward and he's kind of weird, but he also has like this dark sense of humor, and the other kids think it's funny, but he's kind of that friend that they like to hang out with at school, but they don't ever actually want to bring him home to, because he's kind of odd.
Mm-hmm.
And you read that book, and if you didn't know, you're like, man, this is a story of like a wayward kid, and all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute. This goes to a dark place.
He grew up to be Jeffrey Dahmer.
So, if this movie were well made, I think there would be something that says, listen, here's guys pursuing this dream that they think they're entitled to. You could call that any kind of lifestyle you want. You call it the 90s lifestyle. You call it the thug lifestyle. You could call it, guys who are just thinking that the world owes them everything. It's
you
like
call
Scarface.
it the 99% lifestyle.
Sure, these guys that think, you know what, I'm going to take what I want and I'm not going to let anybody stop me from it. And then you're like, man, this really happened. Is this a cautionary tale? Obviously, that could be exploited, but I saw your argument against the movie, from what I read from your reviews, seemed to be you solely didn't like the idea this was based on a true story.
I didn't like how it was. I didn't mind the fact it was based on a true story. I didn't like how it was handled as almost like more comedic than a Lethal Weapon movie for most of the movie. And when they're doing these terrible things, it's like they're just making light of it. It's not a big deal. And it's based on a true story. Whereas I feel like something with, what's the name of the graphic? My Friend Jeffrey?
My Friend Dahmer.
My Friend Dahmer. I feel like that seems like that's a serious approach.
It's a more serious approach.
To a serious subject matter. Whereas I feel like this, Michael Bay made it more simply. I mean, were these guys really that funny in real life? Were they, of course they were boneheads, but were they really that comedic?
I would be interested.
I'm sure interviews maybe could prove some of that.
I would be interested in his intention.
Yeah.
If you take something and you
One sec.
Okay,
We gotta
go ahead.
know. That's a great point. But this is Michael Bay's passion project. This is the movie that Paramount promised they would let him do if he made the Transformers movies. He's been wanting to make this movie for years. It's a $25 million movie, which is an extremely low budget for
That's
Michael
small
Bay.
for Michael Bay.
So this is his passion project.
Michael Bay has blown up stacks of $25 million bills,
Exactly.
for special effects.
At strip clubs in Florida.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jerry. His intention.
I think his intention would be interesting to determine, because I always think that if you look at something from a different angle, it can give you a different view of something. that obviously, yes, these are real victims, and it sounds like they changed the names, although I think everybody could have,
They only changed the names of the Victor Kershaw character because he's still alive.
Oh, really?
They didn't change the names of the two people who died,
Okay.
and they didn't change the names of the three, that committed the crime. It seems a very raw, visceral look at these murders, but then you're making it comedic.
I guess I would have to judge it for myself.
It's raw. It's a hard R rating.
But the intention of it for him, for his intention for the movie, of what he wanted the audience to come away with. I mean, sometimes, if somebody watched the movie and was laughing, and then all of a sudden said, "Oh my gosh, this is a true story," I feel like a horrible person.
That is how I felt. I'll admit.
How easy would it be to fall into that trap, fall into that lifestyle, walk down that road?
I did actually have that thought.
It made them think. Then it may have served a better purpose.
It made me think. It's like everything you've had, everything you worked for, your job, your education, your reputation, your integrity. One mistake, and this was murder.
Yeah.
But it can be something as simple as drinking and driving, or whatever it might be. One mistake and it's all taken away, and the dynamic of your life is flipped on its head, and you're viewed in a different light from friends, family, everyone. And it's like, how easy can something be taken away? And that really did make me feel that way. But I hate, it sounds like I like this movie, and I like a lot of things about it. I just don't know. I feel like Michael Bay got so much of it right. And this could have been Michael Bay's best movie if he would have, he made it too comedic. Too comedic. And another thing I have a problem with, Jerry, is how this movie was advertised. I had several conversations with friends. What the hell is this movie about?
Yeah.
It's bodybuilders who commit a crime. Did we know they were going to be murderers? Did you know that going in? I didn't. It's just knew it was based on a magazine article. I was like, well, leave it to Michael Bay to make a 2-hour and 10-minute movie. Based on a magazine article, but you pointed out good movies are Die Hard 4.
Yeah.
So, but Gina, I gotta ask your opinion listening to all this.
Dog Day Afternoon was based off a newspaper article
about
a bank robbery. Yeah.
Okay.
Lots of stories actually have that kind of
tabloid based.
Yeah, well, it's a creative person looking down and seeing something that inspires them. There's an author, and I can't remember who it was specifically, but the guy who wrote Count of Monte Cristo. I don't know his name.
Oh my
the
gosh.
author of Count of Monte Cristo, but he was like a bestseller in his day. I mean, that book was serialized, but anyway, he is known for all his bestsellers where he dropped open a book and it happened to land on something and it caught his eye, and he was known for pulling these large, long stories, best-selling stories out of thin air, basically. So that's a very common way for.
But what do you think of Pain and Gain specifically? Would it rub you the wrong way?
I don't know. I'd really have to watch it, and I completely see what you're talking about. It sounds like to me you were just.
It hit me over the head.
You felt like it was an inappropriate way to
deal with the subject
show the
matter.
content. Yeah. My question is
almost glorifying it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My question is, you mentioned several actors who have very kind of stereotypical characters. They play the same kind of character. I feel like Mark Wahlberg is very much so that way. I've never
All the
seen
time?
him.
I don't think so. Departed, he's like this detective, right? He's a detective in Departed.
Yeah.
Well, I guess in all the movies that I've seen him in,
he's
he's like this, wise guy, wisecracking Brooklynite who,
in a way, I will say about Mark Wahlberg, I either love him or hate him.
Okay.
He's either great in movie, and I will say he was fantastic in this movie.
Okay.
I'll say all three of the leads were fantastic.
I love
Yeah,
the
Big
Hit. Remember The Big Hit?
I hadn't seen it.
That was a great movie.
The Private Detective.
Ed
Harris, man. He's a good actor.
I feel like he plays the same character in pretty much everything he does.
Oh, you ever seen Apollo 13?
No.
What?
You've never seen Apollo
Oh my
13?
God.
I've seen. I don't think I've seen it all the way through.
He's mission control.
It's not quite Armageddon, but
Okay,
I'm
Apollo
just-
13 is an epic film.
It is.
I mean,
epic.
I've
I
seen
agree.
parts
I
of it,
love
but
epic.
If I've seen it all the way through, it was like
It's
early
one of
childhood.
those like
Tom-
quintessential Tom Hanks
Yeah.
1990s.
But
Saving
anyway,
Private
back
Kevin
to my
Bacon?
question.
Oh God, I love Kevin Bacon.
I know.
You have multiple characters that, at least from my experience with them, have played very similar characters over and over and over.
Mhm.
Were they playing original characters in this movie? Do you feel like they really took on a character, or is it the same kind of rehashing of...
I believe this was it was their take on these characters. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't believe they like. I'm gonna read every police report about this guy. You know, I believe it's like, all right, here's what this guy did. I'm acting for the movie. I thought Mark Wahlberg was fantastic, but I didn't
But
feel
did
like he
he-
tried to become that character who committed these murders. You know what I mean by that statement, Gina?
Well, like, I mean, every time that I see Mark in a film, and maybe I just haven't seen enough of his films, but I'm thinking of, like, Ted and the other guys.
You're talking about all of his comedies.
Yeah, okay, so maybe, well, there you go, because this is a comedic role. I would be
Well,
very
but-
interested to see if this comedic role
It
is
shouldn't
played
be a
the-
comedic role, though.
Well, okay, we're past that.
Comedic
Get
role
over
for who?
that, Brad.
For Mark Wahlberg.
Okay.
It was semi-comedic. I don't think he even approached it as a comedic role. Like, he wasn't thinking, this is a comedy.
Yeah.
He was thinking, this is kind of a biopic on these three guys.
Well,
and this story.
I still would be really interested to see how he approached this character and if it kind of came off as very similar to his other comedy sort of roles. But yeah.
I kind of agree with you on Mark Wahlberg sometimes, but then I think of three things. Invincible, great sports movie, is awesome in that. Departed, great in that movie. Academy Award winning movie, Martin Scorsese. And then he is the man who gave us one of my all-time favorite shows, Entourage, which he created that show actually based on his life. The ultimate bro show. And Gina knows I love bro stuff. The Hangover.
He's all about
This
bros.
is the end. Any kind of bromance. I love you, man. I love that movie. I honestly do like those kind of bro movies. I'm not going to lie. They're just the kind of movies you can just relax, have a beer, enjoy, turn your brain off. I love the thinkers. Christopher Nolan's Inception, stuff like that. But Oblivion, like we're going to talk about later, it's a little bit of a thinker, but there's nothing wrong with a bro movie. But I think that pretty much wraps it up for Pain and Gain. Is that going to wrap it up for what we've been checking out this week, guys?
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's move
Wrap it
into a few epic news items of the week. And the first one, by a few, I mean two, and I know y'all are glad to have
So
me
a
back.
couple?
Yes, they're both Marvel related.
Okay.
Which I believe we've been missing a little Marvel stuff. And I'm going to turn one into a semi-serious discussion on race in movies. And I'm very fascinated to get both of you guys' take on this.
Okay.
The Fantastic Four reboot had some casting news. Casting rumors. There's a Fantastic Four reboot is hitting in March of 2015. It's going to be directed by Josh Trank. This is the same guy who directed Chronicle. Have either one of you guys seen Chronicle?
I have
No.
not seen it.
It was actually
I've heard good things about it.
It was actually probably my third favorite film.
That's the found
Of
footage
last year.
superhero movie?
Yeah, the found footage superhero
Yeah.
movie. It's actually my third favorite movie of last year, but there was casting news that Michael B. Jordan, who was he's an African American guy, a black guy who was very, very well done in Chronicle, did a great job. It was a very well done character by Josh Trank. He has been rumored to be up for the role of Jonny Storm. This kind of flashed me back to when Donald Glover was rumored to play Spider-Man, or he wanted to play Spider-Man. And I was having a conversation with a black coworker at the time who was also a big comic books fan. And basically we had a kind of a disagreement. It wasn't racial or anything like that. I just said I don't think that a black person should play a white character, much in the same way I wouldn't want, Robert Downey Jr. to play the Black Panther. The Black Panther's black. I wouldn't want a white person to play Bishop. Or, vice versa. Any kind of black character playing a white character or a white character playing a black character, I don't know, it just doesn't make any sense in my head. And then, you have those who make the argument that, well, all these characters were created at a time where you kind of had to just push only white characters. Yeah. But still, they're still white. There's kind of that integrity. Now, I understand it completely. A lot of people bring up Nick Fury.
Yeah. He's
originally white, right? Well, actually, in the Ultimate Comics, they introduced him as black, and they actually asked Samuel L. Jackson could they use his rights. And he said, yes, absolutely, but if you ever do a movie, you got to get me to play him. And that we're talking about, this is early 2000s, to around 2001. And then fast forward to 2008, he's in Iron Man. So if there is like a version of a black character, for example, if Donald Glover wanted to play Miles Morales, now the black Hispanic Spider-Man, I would not have a problem with it. It's fine. But there is no kind of alternate version of Jonny Storm where he is black. So I'm interested to hear, your guys' opinion on this.
Gina?
I don't know. It would depend on how loyal I was to the character. Because regardless of what race you are, your race is going to define.
Let's use an example. 1 second. Just to kind of get you in this mindset. Gina is a diehard, bigger Star Wars fan than I am. They reboot Star Wars, which would already be awful enough. Then they make Luke Skywalker black. And they call him Luke Skywalker.
Well, that's difficult because we are in an alternate universe where we don't know what race has, gone into that. I'm looking at it specifically from, let's go back to the Spider-Man. You've got Peter Parker. Peter Parker growing up as a Caucasian male is going to have life experiences and is going to present himself differently than a Peter Parker who is African American.
Or they're just Miles Morales, who is a black Spider-Man now.
They're just from culturally growing up, they're going to have a different worldview, maybe a different speech pattern. Those you're going to have two different characters. Can you redefine a character in a different race? I mean, maybe, as long as you're not just changing color on a page.
I think the less established a character is, the more you're able to change without altering the character too much.
But Jonny Storm's a member of the Fantastic Four.
Jonny Storm's a pretty ingrained character. My question always is, aren't there other, characters of, and maybe that's one of the issues, there just aren't enough superheroes of different races. Now, since the late 70s and 80s, we've been having a lot more characters, but it just seems that, studios aren't willing to buy into those characters yet.
I have a solution. How about Marvel, Fox, Sony, the people that make these superhero movies, Warner Brothers, instead of making white characters black, give the black characters the justice they deserve. Do a really good Black Panther movie. Bishop's gonna be in X-Men Days of Future Past. Don't just have him as a side character just to be there. Bishop's a pretty big character in X-Men. He's played some
very big character.
He's played some major, plot points and some huge stories that I'm not gonna spoil right now, but that you could easily tie into a Days of Future Past film. Give the black characters their moment in the sun to shine just as much as all these white characters have been given. But don't mess with the continuity like that. I'm all for now, at the time, I said I didn't want to see a black Spider-Man. But I would love to see a black Spider-Man. Miles Morales is based on continuity, at least one set of continuity. And this is already we're over a year into Miles being the ultimate Spider-Man, and he kind of has, like Gina said, his background. How is it that a person of color is handling being Spider-Man?
And here's something interesting that I think you said that makes sense. You're okay with a black Spider-Man. It's Peter Parker has always been a white character.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We can have somebody else assume the role.
Yes. Let's think of Batwing, for
Sure.
example. If for some
the Batman of Africa. I mean, that is his.
Yeah.
He is somebody who wears the Batman title has
Yes.
grown up literally. I mean, in Africa,
Yeah.
has seen the war and the things that shape him.
genocide.
Genocide are different than the things that shape Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
Exactly. And Jerry, I would say, let's just say, for example, Jerry talked about a few weeks ago, he'd love to see this big Bat family movie. Let's say they do that, where the second or third one, and Batwing's become this character, he's been built up. And it's like, all right, we're going to have him, don the cape and cowl and become Batman for a little bit.
Sure.
I wouldn't have a huge problem with that. I would have no more of a problem with that than I would John Blake becoming Batman.
Sure.
If I had a problem, it would be on a character level, not a racial level.
Sure. David Zavimbe, who is Batwing, is a strong character. He's the Batman character for Batman Incorporated that covers Africa, and so a great character, like you said. I would be very interested if they would have had him take over the role of Batman.
It's when you start altering, when changing the race of the character would not fit with the backstory. Like going back to the Peter Parker thing. Peter Parker, as we know him, grew up in a sort of suburby area.
Queens,
he
New
has
York.
your typical kind of Caucasian male upbringing.
They're a lower middle class.
Yeah. So, would a African American Peter Parker have the exact kind of experience? Maybe, maybe not. Would we even want to pursue a African American Peter Parker in that kind of situation, or would we want something different? It's when the background character altering the race no longer makes sense with the background.
And this goes for all characters. I'm not saying by no means that, like Jerry said, that we can't have a black Batman. It's just I don't want a black Bruce Wayne, because Bruce Wayne has never been black. When I say all characters, I mean even background characters. I don't want to see a black Harry Osborn. I don't want to see a black Dick Grayson.
Although we have seen two Batman characters that have been changed in media in the past. That in Batman, the Tim Burton film, Billy D. Williams,
and that drove me crazy.
Played Harvey Dent.
It was nothing to do with race.
Sure. Although that never bothered me because it's such a minor role, and I would have actually been really interested to see Billy D. Williams play Two-Face. That would have been pretty awesome. Billy D. Williams was Lando Calrissian.
Mm-hmm.
Lando Calrissian. I said Calrissian. Gosh. And then Eartha Kitt stepped in and played Catwoman for a period in the 1966 series.
But almost the 66 series almost kind of established its own continuity. Almost kind of the same way that
But Julie Newmar played her for a while, and then Eartha Kitt just jumped into the role. It was what it was. So it can work sometimes. But I am just uncomfortable with the idea of why would you just are you doing it for a purpose, for storytelling? Yeah. Or is it,
It seems like they're just doing it because it's the cool thing to do.
Are you arbitrarily changing a character's race? And that could happen either way. I mean, how happy would people be if, like Brad said earlier, we had a new Star Wars movie with a white Lando Calrissian?
Yeah.
I would hate that.
Or a Spanish Lando Calrissian. I mean...
I would be just as pissed.
I don't know.
Me and Jerry has talked about how much DC has been pushing Cyborg.
Yeah.
And Jerry has said he thinks that, he will, if they do a Justice League film, he would expect to see him there. I would be pissed if they had a white Cyborg.
Yeah.
He's a black character.
Hey, I do know that at the same time, I can understand where there comes, the first thing that jumps to my mind is in cosplay, okay? I'm going to cosplay real quick. People dressing up at conventions and things like that. One of the most popular things to do is for females to take a male character and make a female version of that character. I mean, my wife did it last year at HeroCon. She was a female version of the 10th Doctor.
That was a good costume, by the way.
It was a great costume. And it's one of those things that if you have a popular character, if you can find what really makes that character tick and transfer it, then it works, and it can be fun. You don't often see guys dress up like a male version of Wonder Woman.
Exactly.
You do see guys dress like Princess Leia sometimes, which is kind of weird. But
even in the slave girl outfit.
Yeah, even the slave girl outfit. But once again, is arbitrarily changing a character from male to female, is that really giving females, an equal voice, or is it just saying
we're throwing in our token?
Yeah, it's like they're pandering.
Yeah.
To different races, to different genders.
And let's be honest,
hate to call it that.
There's a lot of speculation for a lot of Marvel characters that they were intended to be Jewish. You've probably heard a lot of that speculation about a lot of the Marvel characters were intended to be Jewish, and that was always just, never brought out very much, but, that the creators had a lot of influence there.
Stan Lee's Jewish.
Exactly, and he's kind of said a lot of times, that's what he intended for his, his characters who were undergoing persecution for who they were.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna sum up this kind of conversation with say, we want to see more diverse superheroes. We do. We want to see a Black Panther movie. We want to see Bishop be kick-ass in X-Men Days of Future Past. We want to see Cyborg in Justice League.
I would love to see Cyborg become a major heavy hitter.
Yeah.
I really want to see that.
Just coming up, Iron Man 3 is coming out tomorrow. I love seeing, Rhodey. Don Cheadle is Rhodey.
Yeah.
Terrence Howard was good. I love those characters. If they ever made a War Machine movie, I would be there opening weekend.
Sure.
And I would never want them to make Rhodey, white. It's the same way. And, of course, not trying to make it racial in any way, but I think it is a topic worth discussing.
Yeah, definitely.
It's always, people are always super critical of changes to the character. Okay? Any change to the character.
Not just race.
People are super critical of it. And the question is, does the change serve a purpose?
Mm-hmm.
If you can really and truly make the change serve a purpose, then go for it. Once again, if they can make in this movie that, maybe one of Fantastic Four, okay, let's make one of them, of African American descent, or let's make one of them, Asian or something. You just have to work around the dynamics and make sure that it all still makes sense to everyone, that it works, that it's serving the story and not just there because. One of the things that bothered some fans, and G.I. Joe has a long comic history, and I'll just throw this out. The second movie did it because Roadblock is a really prominent G.I. Joe character of African American descent, or African American in the comics and the toys always. In the first G.I. Joe movie, you had Marlon Wayans playing the character of Ripcord.
Yes.
One, nobody liked his character. I thought he was one of the more annoying parts of the first.
We're talking about Ripcord in the movie, not the G.I. Joe
in Rise of Cobra.
Continuity.
In the movie. Number two, Ripcord was a very, very, very different character in the comics. Didn't even matter that in the comics he was a white guy with red hair. It was Marlon Wayans' character didn't resemble this character at all, who was this really gutsy, paratrooper that, you know, had this really interesting relationship in the comic books with this, you know, that he one time obeyed direct orders and was willing to parachute into a combat zone. The point was there were all these great G.I. Joe characters that were of African American descent. There were lots of great Asian characters, and the G.I. Joe movie's solution was, let's just take characters and let's just, you know, give them different races. Let's make Breaker French.
Yes.
Breaker was a guy from Gatlinburg, Tennessee. If you wanted somebody, you know, from Europe, there were plenty of people who were like members of the SAS or I'm trying to remember what the French Special Services is. FSL maybe. Anyways, there were lots of characters.
French have special service.
Special forces? Yeah, I bet everybody has special
I'm just
forces.
kidding.
Yeah, definitely. Why not bring somebody over there that already is established rather than just say, okay, well, we're going to take a character and we're going to arbitrarily slap a race and a name together and make something else.
Yeah, I agree with Brad. The solution is just, and you just said it too, Jerry, pick out, if you want diversity, pick out the diverse characters and bring them to light and allow them to have strong roles and to be lead stories.
Black Panther has become, since I've got to know the character over the past decade of really reading Marvel Comics, and especially now, he's a big player in New Avengers. He's a member of the Illuminati.
Yeah.
And I love him. I was like, God, I would love to see somebody interact. And Wesley Snipes has always been rumored. I know he's played Blade.
Oh my gosh. Blade, yeah.
Yeah, but that, you know, he's always been rumored to play the Black Panther. I was like, how cool would it see him to interact with the Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man on screen? I mean, there's great characters. Use them.
All right, I have a Marvel question for you, real quick, and we move on. If Iron Man 3 is good, which we assume it will be.
Early reviews look promising.
If Iron Man 3 is good, will that make it the first Marvel trilogy? Will it now be the best Marvel trilogy? Because prior to that, the best Marvel trilogy is Blade. Hands down.
Really?
Blade.
Yeah, Blade is pretty strong trilogy. I almost don't consider... Man, I know Blade's a Marvel character, but I almost don't consider him like...
But was Blade not... I mean, other than Batman, let's discount Batman and Superman because they are so in another league.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll just say in terms of public recognition.
Yeah.
Was Blade the first comic book movie that was actually good?
Yeah, the first Blade.
Yeah, I'm just saying, Blade was like the first comic book movie.
It's the first Marvel movie.
Yeah, the first comic book movie that I thought that was actually like really good.
We're not counting 1978 Superman.
Yeah, I'm not counting Superman and Batman because people, I mean, they had such wide exposure that people knew who they were.
I think I would agree with that statement.
I think Blade was the first comic book movie that was actually good.
And there's a great black character.
Yeah.
Would you have not been upset if Blade was played by like Russell Crowe or something?
I know. Who would have been 98, who would have played Blade? Like
Tom Cruise.
Ethan Hawke. Somebody like
Cruise,
that.
Somebody like that. But okay, moving on.
Mark Wahlberg is Blade.
Moving on to another bit of Marvel news, and this is Avengers 2 related.
All right.
It's two big items, okay?
Two big items.
Number one, Joss Whedon has said that a brother-sister duo will play a large role in Avengers 2.
My first guess was North Star and Polaris.
That's a thought. Obviously, I had the same one everybody else did. Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch,
I had no idea.
and Quicksilver, who is Pietro Maximoff, Wanda's brother. And the thing is, they're both, you know who their father is.
Yes, Magneto, the master of magnetism.
Here's what makes this interesting. All of Magneto being an X-Men rights are at Fox. So they can never reference Magneto being their father.
And Polaris is related to them, but she's like somebody's half-brother. But I said North Star and Polaris. It's North Star and Aurora, who North Star was one of the first openly gay comic book characters.
So I researched some of the legal ramifications of having these two in this film. As long as they don't reference the word mutant and don't reference Magneto, Quicksilver and Wanda Maximoff can be in the Avengers movie with all of their normal powers, which Wanda Maximoff can like alter reality. She's so powerful. So I think that takes away a little. I mean, one of the things that makes them so cool is they are Magneto's kids. You kind of have that in the back of your head.
Well, what gives them their power if they're not technically, if we can't say that they're mutants?
I guess it would Josh would have to rewrite that, and I'm sure he could do it like in an hour. He's such a brilliant writer, but still.
Because I'm guessing that their powers do come from the fact that they are mutants.
Yeah,
they have
they could just figure something. I mean, a simple line is, where do your powers come from? I don't know. We were just born with them.
Exactly. That's a way to tightrope, and maybe you just kind of realize that in the current Marvel Cinematic Universe that mutants are not. This is their first encounter with mutants.
Yeah.
And maybe they can have a bigger encounter if they can ever get contracts worked out between all these companies, which I don't understand because there's so many like multi-studio distributions now. You have to watch, like, were we watching Evil Dead? There was like 5 things that came up before the movie started.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, but
there's a really funny Family Guy reference
Jerry
to that.
told me about that. But anyway, it was very interesting to just hear that. It's so cool. We actually, I guess not technically, but we're going to get to see X-Men characters interact with these characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
If that's the brother-sister duo that they've picked,
and it could be Joss Whedon just throwing up a smoke screen, but there will be a brother-sister duo. There could be other ones, but this is like the obvious, they were both members of the Avengers. Scarlet Witch being a big member of the Avengers who was actually married to Vision, and Vision has been rumored to be Agent Phil Coulson.
I don't know where that rumor comes from. I have no clue, but people are adamant about it.
Well, Phil Coulson's coming back in the S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show. And a lot of times they have life model decoys in Marvel Comics, and that's my only way that they would tightrope that. Nick Fury just did that to galvanize the team.
I could see that happening.
But that's pretty interesting. Another thing is that Thanos. We all saw Thanos, and I geeked out thinking, we're going to get to see the Avengers take on the biggest baddie in the Marvel U, the most powerful, the destroyer of universes.
Paste Pot Pete.
No, Thanos.
Okay.
So, and it was even teased that he may even be a villain in Guardians of the Galaxy, at least as a backdrop. Then they'll face him in Avengers 2. But Kristen posted some news on the Facebook page. Joss Whedon is saying that he may not be the villain for Avengers 2, that he's so big that they're saving him for maybe a future Avengers 3, and he's just building up in the background. But I want to hear your reaction to that, guys. That seems like such a tease. I mean, holding him off to a third movie, which would probably be 2018 at that point.
I don't know. That's a pretty powerful way to rope people in and to make sure they're coming back.
But what if somebody like Robert Downey Jr. doesn't come back? He said he would play Iron Man probably one more time. He said he don't want to play him past 50. Okay? So let's just say this. There's a rumor. Joss Whedon loves killing off characters. A lot of people thought he might kill off Captain America because Cap was famously killed off. There's a rumor he'll flip-flop it and kill off Iron Man. So to give him an out for not having Robert Downey Jr. in a third movie. So you're missing you could potentially be missing your biggest hitter in the Avengers, that Robert Downey Jr., Tony Stark, Iron Man, when they go up against Thanos. And that, when he was teased in a movie at the end of the first one where Robert Downey Jr. was the lead man.
Yeah.
I mean, that just seems a little disheartening to me as a Marvel fanboy.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I personally, I like the idea of tease him at the end of the first movie, have him as a background character in the second movie, have him as the main villain in the third movie. It seems like a really nice build-up instead of having him just show up.
Yeah.
No, but the thing is, he's going to play something in Guardians of the Galaxy. You got to remember a character like Drax the Destroyer, who's going to be played by the WWE star Dave Bautista. whose sole purpose in life is to kill Thanos because Thanos killed his family. So, I mean, Thanos is at least going to be referenced heavily in a Guardians of the Galaxy
So he is an
film.
iconic enough character by the time that the third movie is out there that the conflict is escalated.
I mean, it's going to be
You've seen
huge.
him in a couple movies.
They've been building, and it may be a good payoff, but I would say you only do that if you're sure you got in your head, if you're Joss Whedon. First of all, we don't know if Joss is going to come back for Avengers 3. He's signed through Phase 2.
Yeah.
You would think he would, just to kind of cap the trilogy like Nolan did with Batman.
Yeah, you think you'd want to finish that. I mean, unprecedented.
There's no guarantee that any of these other seems like they'll have everybody inked up by then except Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
He's still out there, and it doesn't look like he's going to do another Iron Man. Sources have said, it hasn't been confirmed, that he said he will at least do Avengers 2, and he may do another Avengers, but he's done with the Iron Man movies, which is understandable.
3 is a good number.
Yeah, but I mean, guys, come on, you have to have him you have to have Thor, Cap, and Iron Man when they take on Thanos.
But can't they take the time and build up other characters so that
But there's no replacing that Robert Downey Jr.
there's no
Iron
replacing him, but the goal is to build up enough characters that the loss isn't felt as...
Yeah.
Okay, how would you
It's
feel
profound.
about a Justice League movie? Let's flip this, and they build up the fight in Darkseid, and either Superman or Batman aren't in it.
If you have enough strong characters, personally, yeah, you'd miss Batman if you're a big Batman fan, or Superman. But if you have enough strong characters, that's just the way the story happens.
Okay. Well, at least if he's not there, hopefully Whedon will make it meaningful, which I'm sure he would.
I'm sure he would.
So, but it just seems like maybe Thanos kills Iron Man at the end of the second movie. I mean, how crazy would that be? He rips Robert Downey Jr.'s head off.
Oh man.
God, that would be epic. Oh my gosh. But anyway, enough of me geeking out over Marvel fantasies. Let's go ahead and move in to our featured review of the week, which was Tom Cruise's latest effort, the brand new science fiction film, Oblivion.
60 years ago, Earth was attacked. We won the war, but they destroyed half the planet. Everyone's been evacuated. Nothing human remains. We're here for drone repair with a mop-up crew. This is Jack Harper. I'm good to go.
2 more weeks, Jack, and we can finally leave and join the others. Don't take any chances.
And that was from the trailer of Joseph Kosinski's latest film, Oblivion, starring Tom Cruise. Jerry, will you just set Oblivion up for us?
Sure, absolutely. Oblivion starts off, and it takes place in the year 2077. Tom Cruise plays Jack Harper, known as Technician 49.
And the Justice League movie has just came out.
What? Oh yeah,
It's
2077.
gonna take it forever
okay.
to come out.
I see what you did there.
A little
Earth-
slow on the uptake.
Earth has been eradicated 60 years prior to this. There was a nuclear war when an alien race called the Scavengers showed up to Earth. The moon was destroyed, and the rest of humanity is residing in this giant tetrahedral space station that's called the Tet. And so Tom Hanks, Jack Harper, and
Tom Hanks.
Did I say Tom
You
Hanks?
did say Tom Hanks.
Oh
Tom
my
Hanks
gosh.
would be pretty epic in this role, but this
Yeah.
was a very Tom
Tom
Cruise
Cruise.
movie.
It was Tom Cruise. Sorry, Tom Hanks is not in this movie. Tom Cruise's character Jack Harper, and then Andrea Riseborough's character Victoria Olsen are these two individuals who, as far as we know, they're the only 2 humans that are living on Earth. They're living in this floating space.
It's not floating.
It is.
has,
It is tethered to the
It
ground.
looks like Bespin.
Well, it's set on a.
It does look like
like
Bespin.
Cloud City.
Yeah, well, but
It's up on a
it's
mountaintop or something,
No,
isn't it?
it's on a huge
Stilts.
tripod.
Okay.
Yeah, it comes down as one big thing, and then it splits off into 3 different feet.
Okay.
And then Tom Cruise tells her, "You truly belong among us in the clouds."
Truly belong us among Thanos in the clouds. So he's a technician, and what his goal is that he goes down in his spaceship. Well, really, it's not really a spaceship. His bubble ship. He can fly into space if he wants to.
Yeah, that's true.
And he goes down among the ruins of Earth, and he's fixing and repairing these drones that are supposed to be fighting off these alien scavengers that are trying to attack these giant power cores or something. They're processing seawater.
Yeah, they suck up the seawater, and
because the scavengers come and destroy all of Earth's natural resources, apparently, or that's what they try to do. And so the humans are trying to take all of Earth's resources with them
for their trip to Titan.
Yeah, to Titan, one of the moons of Saturn.
And no one's at Titan, right? Because halfway through the movie, I was thinking there's already a colony on Titan, because she keeps referring to
Can I throw a Marvel fact in here?
Throw a Marvel fact in there.
Jerry always does with the He-Man stuff.
Let's do it.
I just want to do this. You know, Titan is the home of what famous Marvel baddie?
Thanos.
Exactly.
Thanos is from Titan.
I just remember thinking, like, halfway through the movie, I'm like, oh, wait, are there people on Titan or not? You know, like, so it's kind of confusing.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
they're all on the Tet, and they're waiting for the mop-up crew to come back from Earth, and then they're all going to go to Titan, right?
I think so. It's been about a week and a half. It's been about 2 weeks since we saw this movie. I think they may imply that there are some people already colonizing Titan and getting it ready. Because that's one of the things about coming into this movie, is that we're told this story of what's happened to Earth by Jack, Tom Cruise's character. Jack and Victoria, they live in this tower far above Earth. Everything's sterile. You know, everything is like shades of white and stuff like that. White. And
that was a message from Tet.
Was a message from Tet.
Yes.
They live in this really sterile, like ultra efficient environment.
Very utilitarian.
Very much so. It kind of reminded me of like Apple technology. It was just dull.
It was basically
lifeless.
Steve Jobs' greatest fantasy come to life.
Exactly.
It was very glass, lots of metal, lots of white and silver. Not a whole lot of kind of earth tones or anything that would make it look organic.
They're living there. They're monitoring the drones while they're collecting the resources from Earth. Jack flies missions to make sure the drones are okay. That they're if they're in need of repair. He's also spent some time on Earth's surface. He's investigating it. He's learning about it. He's picking up books and artifacts that he finds.
Little side note here. The lady who played Jack's partner, what was her name?
Andrea Riseborough.
Yeah, Jessica Chastain was originally scheduled to play that role. Jessica Chastain from
Zero Dark 30.
From Zero Dark 30, but she just had such a busy
year
last year.
They do look kind of similar.
They do. I could see Jessica Chastain.
They said, we'll find someone that looks like her, don't worry.
Yes, but she wasn't an Academy Award winning, should have been award winning, but Academy nominated actress. But Jerry continued.
Okay. Jack doesn't quite know we don't get an idea how long he's been there in this mission.
Yeah.
It seems like the idea is that they only have 2 weeks left.
Well, we know they only have 2 weeks left. They say that
They do say they
times,
were on 2 weeks left.
But they kind of infer the way that they talk and they move, and they definitely kind of get, at least I got the feeling that they'd been there for at least a little while.
Yeah, but they've had a memory wipe in the past, and so they don't remember much else that's happened.
Which comes in to be a major plot point later. In the
and the memory wipe was there
security
for security reasons, so that they couldn't remember anything.
And their only contact is they have a woman who kind of functions as a mission control that's on the Tet, who contacts them every day and gives Sandy and gives them their orders.
And I must admit, her southern accent really grated on me.
She very much had a southern accent, but Mission Control is located in Texas, and so most astronauts originally were chosen from the Midwest because they have the most regional free dialect, and the computers need to understand them. but most mission control operators were from the
So
Texas
I couldn't
area.
work at mission control.
No,
Maybe
you
I-
could work at
Oh,
mission
yeah,
control.
you
You,
could.
you definitely can work at
Alright,
mission control.
alright. This is mission control.
So-
the epic review.
Jack is trying to figure out, he's built.
He's struggling with
Yeah.
the thought of having to leave Earth.
This is his home planet. He's gotten this opportunity to go back. He's gotten, I believe it was the Superdome that had been destroyed, and where he's on one of these missions. He's reliving the last Super Bowl in his head.
Yeah.
And it's kind of unfathomable for him to leave this all behind for good.
Yeah, and well, he is having these dreams and these visions of a life on Earth, but he's too young to have ever lived on Earth
Before the war.
So it's a very mysterious movie. Before we get talking about specific plot points, I want to jump into the style of the movie.
Yes.
It's obviously science fiction.
And I want to read a quote from a very prominent movie blogger.
Okay.
And I believe this is going to set the tone for what Jerry's going to say.
Okay, go for it.
Jermaine Lucier of Slash Film, whose work I enjoy very much. I respect him as one of the best reviewers on the web. He said if he could sum up this movie in one way, he would say this is Joe Kosinski. Joe Kosinski. He said if I could sum up Oblivion in one way, this is Joe Kosinski's love letter to classic science
Kosinski.
fiction.
Yes.
Sorry, Kosinski.
Okay, so I was right the first time.
Yeah.
But he said it's Joe Kosinski's love letter to classic science fiction. Kind of that pre-Star Wars
Mhm.
Yes.
science fiction, that Blade Runner type, if you will. Almost, which
Yeah,
I know
Blade
Blade
Runner's
Runner was
post-Star
post-Star Wars,
Wars,
but that
but
was
it's the
still in
same
the mold
spirit.
of that. Like you were mentioning, Jerry, films like 2001: A Space Odyssey, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And this movie does remind me a lot of Blade Runner for reasons we'll talk about after spoilers.
Yeah.
But Jerry, go ahead with that. I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. I want to say that this movie really does feel like the science fiction films that came out pretty much between us landing on the moon and Star Wars. Kind of that period between the late 60s and up until 1977 when we had films. We'd left behind all of the old sci-fi movies about, the Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon and, moon monsters. We'd moved beyond that because we'd got to the moon. So you're talking more movies like science fiction that were closer in tone to things like Ray Bradbury stories.
Yes.
You had things like 2001: A Space Odyssey, Soylent Green, Logan's Run, things that really looked more at how humans would react to a future world. THX 1138. They were looking at things more about how humans would react versus how humans would respond to
A monster threat.
to monsters or
Yeah.
alien creatures. But we hadn't got to the fantasy side of sci-fi yet that would really come out when we hit Star Wars, when Star Wars came out. It's a very stark movie. I mean, it is slow paced at times. There's a lot of times where you're just focusing on scenery and small events that are happening. It is not an action-packed film,
No.
but I enjoyed that about it. I enjoyed the pacing because it helped us to get into the idea, the life that Jack and Victoria have. There's no intimacy or warmth between them. They're two people, and you get the idea that they are. I mean,
They do have. Didn't they have a physical relationship?
It's kind of nodded at.
I think there's a physical relationship there, but at the same time, every night Jack dreams of some woman he's never met.
Yeah, he even says, "I know I've never met you, but somehow I love you."
Yeah,
Like,
I think
Which
that
is explained later.
it's almost like their relationship is artificial. That
Yeah.
it's more of what you might say a marriage of convenience.
yeah.
I mean, they're both there. They keep getting asked over and over by Mission Control, "Are you an effective team?" And that's it. They're just a team. They work together, and there's a physical relationship, but there's no warmth. There's no intimacy. she never leaves where they live. She never leaves that tower.
She's scared to.
And the world is so different. Everything, as Gina mentioned earlier, is sterile and, you know, glass and metal. But when Jack takes off in the bubble ship and goes down into the ruins of Earth, it is actually a more lively environment. That there are...
even though Earth's been decimated...
there's more happening there.
Yeah, there's a beautiful moment in the movie where he's in his ship and he flies underneath this, like, natural bridge sort of thing, and he goes into this little valley area, and just like, you know, you're talking about how part of the movie is just focusing on scenery and that kind of thing. You know, it's really beautiful moment. I remember thinking that was really nice. Nicely done.
I'm not sure how much more we can...
well, real quick before we get into spoilers, I just want to talk about some of the performances in this movie without getting spoilerific.
Okay.
I do think, and I can tell you this from the trailer, and it was even confirmed more when I saw it. A lot of people were saying, you know, this could be Tom Cruise's chance to make a legitimate big science fiction movie kind of, you know... He hasn't really had a big film. He's done films like Night and Day. He was really good in Jack Reacher, but nothing too, you know, huge. And this
Minority Report was a pretty big science fiction film.
No, I'm not saying that.
Films,
exactly. Yes, I agree. But that's been a while ago, guys.
Oh, recent.
I'm talking about recently.
Gotcha.
I'm not talking about ever. Of course, Minority Report.
Okay.
A Minority Report was 2001, wasn't it? 2001?
Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
It was very early 2000s.
Maybe 2002.
But, anyways, it looked like a perfect role for Tom Cruise. And I joked with my friend as we watched it. I was like, so this is what Scientologists believe will happen to the Earth? Because, you know, Tom Cruise is famous for being... he's probably the most famous Scientologist.
I would imagine so.
He and John Travolta. I believe Will Smith might be. I'm not 100%
I have no idea.
that. A lot of celebrities are big Scientologists.
He's more famous than probably L. Ron Hubbard.
Who founded the religion.
That's exactly right.
But it did kind of look like the perfect film for Tom Cruise. You know, Morgan Freeman, he's good in anything he's in. He's good at playing that side character.
Morgan Freeman, exactly. He's an actor that is always good, but he was an actor. I didn't feel like he had anything to do in this movie.
I feel like he was almost there to be Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, to be Morgan Freeman.
Which is always epic, but it's like...
I felt like they just... he was there so they could put his 5 lines in the credits. Yep. That's really...
So they can have that one scene in the trailer where he's staring him down. Yeah. It looks epic, but
there's more here than you know. That sounded like
there
Kennedy.
Wasn't that much.
I'm sitting here.
Yeah, but there really wasn't that. I agree with you on that, but I'll never complain about Morgan Freeman being in a movie.
Not bad, but it could have been anybody else and it would have been okay.
I really I know it was a very small role, and this is because I'm a Game of Thrones guy, but it's Nicholas Waldo, who played kind of he plays Jaime Lannister, the Kingslayer on Game of Thrones, but he was Sykes, who was Morgan Freeman's kind of right-hand man. And, he came and had one cool scene, and my friend that I saw this with joked, that's his one scene for the movie. But no, he came back. He had a few good
have a couple scenes.
He had a couple good moments, too.
And I think Brad has delved into something that we at least have to talk about, we can talk about before the spoilers, because it's in the trailer. While Jack believes him and Victoria are the only people on Earth, it turns out there are some other people living on Earth.
Yeah.
And Morgan Freeman is leading those people, which makes
sense. Along with the Kingslayer, Jaime Lannister.
So, are we ready to hit the spoiler?
I think
ready.
So.
Let's roll the spoiler reel forward.
Oh, man.
Spoiler, Will Smith is not a Scientologist. That has been confirmed by the Epic Review staff.
He says he is not.
Okay, but Jerry, move on to the more spoilerific parts of this film.
Okay. So one of the biggest things about this movie is that, Jack and Victoria they really don't have an understanding of what time they're living in. Because their memories have been wiped. They know they're probably in, they weren't over 60 years old, obviously.
Yes.
It turns out that, I mean, we're ready to go full-on spoiler.
Yes.
Yes,
Absolutely.
full-on spoilers.
Jack is a clone.
Not a replicant, a clone.
No, not a replicant. He is a clone. That what happened, the best I can understand, was that he and his wife is who he has dreamed about because he finds her. There is a shuttle crashes, and Jack goes out to investigate it, and he finds this woman that he's had all these dreams and visions about, and she's played by...
the Pink song, I've Been Having Real Bad Dreams, comes on.
What? That does not happen. She's played by Olga Kurylenko, who was... what is her name? My gosh, she was the blind girl in Quantum of Solace. I can't remember.
It's not Strawberry Fields. That's
No,
Gemma
she's
Arterton.
not.
That's
She was
Gemma
one of the ones where I
Arterton.
like Strawberry Fields better than the main blonde girl in the movie. Anyways, he finds her. And this is a woman he's thought about, he's dreamt about, he's had visions about, and she now exists. Which starts prompting him to ask a lot of questions about, is everything that's being told to him, you know, everything he's been basically programmed to do, is it true? Is it factual? He starts, she asks him to take her somewhere. He takes her somewhere. He finds another clone of himself doing the exact same job in another...
That's a pretty cool moment. That stare down.
Yeah, in another part of the planet that he has always been told and has been programmed into his ship's computer as being an off-limit zone because of radiation.
Yeah.
It turns out that him, his wife, Victoria, they were all astronauts, and when they were on their way to
do a research mission.
to do a research mission to Titan, when this giant spaceship showed up, and the Tet showed up, and so they were sent to turn around and to go investigate the Tet because they were already up there to see what was happening.
Yeah.
They ejected the pod that had his wife and a bunch of the other astronauts asleep in it, and Jack and Victoria were in, you know, the main shuttle part, and
Which
they got
kind of like
sucked into the Tet.
Yeah.
They got, you know, they went
tractor
in, yep.
beamed.
Yeah, they get inside the Tet, and the Tet is some kind of alien consciousness that when we see at the end of the film, it really reminds me of Hal from 2001: A Space Odyssey.
I thought of Portal.
Okay, Portal, possibly as well. There are a lot of throwbacks to classic sci-fi movies here. Not that Portal's a classic sci-fi movie, but a classic sci-fi game.
Well, you said 2001. I've already said the replicants in Blade Runner.
Sure.
Like the clones here.
Not knowing am I or aren't I.
Yes.
So anyways, it had made clones of Jack and Victoria, and it used them against the Earth. And so it had unleashed an army of these clones on the Earth, and now it was using them to as tools to suck up all the Earth's resources. What did we say her name was? Sandy?
Sandy, yeah.
Sandy, the mission control. She was the actual mission control person for their original mission.
Yeah.
And the Tet took the recordings and just replays them so that Victoria thinks that she's, you know, talking to them.
Which, can I say, is my favorite part of that entire movie is the scene when Tom Cruise is bringing the survivor with the bomb in the pod into the Tet, and he has the log recording, the black box, so to speak, and he, like, simultaneously is listening to the recording, and we see it, of course, in real time, and real live action, and I just felt like they wove those two things and told the story so well through that. I just thought that was really well done.
Jerry was talking about how the Tet kind of trained Tom Cruise to work against the resistance, to work against Earth, his own people.
Without knowing that he was doing that.
Without knowing that he was doing it. It's important to note, too, that Tom Cruise was once one of the best military members of that resistance. He was a part of Morgan Freeman's group. He was. He said, "You were one of my best guys."
I didn't
He
catch
No,
said
that.
he
that
was.
in the
Tom
film.
Cruise was one of the best astronauts.
Yeah, he was a hero.
And so he was one of the group that went into space to colonize Titan.
Yeah.
And at the time, Morgan Freeman was a young soldier. He was a young man.
It seems like they had known each other before
they'd
were
never
No,
met.
Morgan Freeman
He just
knew.
knew of him because he was
Yeah.
a hero, just like a Neil Armstrong
Yes.
or a John Glenn or a Sally Ride. Everybody
Yes.
knew who he was.
Yes.
Okay.
And he said how terrifying it was when you were the one that came and destroyed all of us.
Like I said, it's been a while since we watched this
Yeah,
movie.
it has been
Yeah.
about 2 weeks.
So it's a good movie, especially if you prefer that quiet, sort of
Yeah.
introspective 60s and late 60s, early 70s ish sci-fi. Getting onto what the movie did well, I didn't think there was any weak acting in this movie. It was a movie that really relied on performances because there wasn't a
Yes.
whole lot of action.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise did a great job. I mean,
It
he
fit him well.
yeah, it
this
fit
role.
him
I
well.
agree.
He plays a likable everyman character
Yes.
who is really questioning, is the life I'm living authentic? I mean, is it true? Is it actually making me happy? He's questioning his job, his relationships, his purpose in life, and he's trying to decide, do I really want to go up there? Do I want to leave the earth behind?
Yeah.
One thing I really liked about it, took this kind of science fiction film, but the basis for the plot of the film was this love story in the backdrop between Cruise and his former wife, who he couldn't remember because of the mind wipe, and then he gets a second chance to be with her.
Although it's not a mind wipe.
After he
it-
had forgotten her, it wasn't a mind wipe. It was a different
creation,
person.
yeah.
But he still had the same.
He
kind
still
of
had these
remnants of
memories,
memory.
and
was-
that was a big part of it. Was
Yeah.
about
Almost like a collective conscience, and not that they were a collective conscience in real time, but they all kind of shared these memories of the original. And I think Victoria, is that the name of?
Victoria.
Yeah. What does he call her? He calls her
He calls her Vika.
Vika. Yeah.
Vika.
I think even her character experiences the same thing because she is the more warmer of the two.
Mhm.
She is the one that reaches out and grabs his hand. But I think her character, that clone of her is remembering back those memories of, I'm in love with him. Yes, he's married, but I'm in love with him
Mhm.
because we see a kind of connection there, mainly her to him,
Mhm.
in that end sequence when they're in, she's come out of cryosleep too, and so they're both piloting the ship, and she gets out the camera and does something that causes him to turn his head, and she takes a picture right as he turns his head so that it looks like he's kissing her.
Yeah.
And that's the picture that's in all of their apartments.
Yeah.
Which, that picture wouldn't be there unless it were to reinforce this idea of you two are supposed to be an effective team.
Mhm.
And so, I think both characters are reliving those kind of memories, and her
Yeah.
clone specifically is bringing back that memory of I love him.
And that's really reinforced at the end when the Jack's clone
takes over 52. Right?
Yes.
You're talking
Yes.
about going back to 52's place.
And he goes and he just knows that that's where he left his wife. That's where she would be. When at the end of the movie, when the resistance.
Oh, yes,
brings
when
him there.
52 comes back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
The important thing is that this film has a love story in the backdrop, just like all great science fiction films, like Han and Leia in Star Wars, or like Liv Tyler and Ben Affleck's character in the Michael Bay masterpiece Armageddon.
So from good to bad, they have love stories.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
No,
For a
no,
second there, I thought you were trying to describe Daredevil.
that was a good love story too. Okay, that spawned their marriage, Jennifer Garner.
So
and Ben
there was
Affleck.
some great acting in here. I thought there was some really effective storytelling, beautiful cinematography.
Yeah.
The bubble ship design, the
Really
set
cool.
design was amazing. Weaknesses for the movie. The major weakness that I felt was near the end of the movie, it felt it felt like they started throwing out every sci-fi trope that you could think of. We've got clones.
Yeah.
We've got, memory that lives in people. We've got aliens that really aren't aliens.
Yeah, they're more like
we've got a
intelligence.
mothership, and we're gonna fly a bomb into it. It really started to feel like they threw out everything that they could possibly think of, and what was a very barren first act suddenly becomes a very heavy-filled second act, and I thought that made the movie feel a little disjointed.
Yeah, I could totally see that too.
It was I'd almost been lulled into this false sense of, okay, just kind of easy sitting there. This, like, all this stuff's happening, and then this major plot twist at the end, and it was almost like you said, Jerry, it wasn't evenly distributed as far as action and the major plots of the story. It was all kind of back end heavy. The pacing fell off, and it just kind of threw me off about otherwise a pretty good film.
Yeah, I gave it a good and a half.
I agree with that. I gave it a good and a half as well.
Which I will say, coming out of the theater, you were giving it a great.
I was giving it a great.
I was giving it a good and a half.
And I'm trying to remember what I said was the thing that changed my mind.
It was the sterility issue.
It was the sterility issue.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second.
All right. At the end of the movie, we see that what is Jack? He is Technician 49.
49.
Okay.
The other one is 52.
When Technician 49, the original Jack that we see,
we've been following the entire movie.
When he finds the woman that's his wife, that was his wife in the past. She'd been cryosleep for years, is what happened.
Yes.
She'd been in cryosleep.
60 years.
Yeah, she'd been in cryosleep for 60 years.
Which she bounced back from that rather quickly. I mean, she only threw up,
which, we don't know. I mean, most movies usually have cryosleep happen pretty quickly. Some do, some don't. I mean, in Alien, that's pretty much what happens. People kind of throw up a little bit, and that's about it. Yeah. So once again, throwback to other sci-fi movies. Cryosleep worked a lot like Alien. So, they're initially a little bit standoffish. I mean, she doesn't act like she quite knows who he is at the beginning. She's suspicious of him.
Well, but she says his name. I think she knows exactly who he's supposed to be.
She knows, but I think she's suspicious of what's going on.
I would agree with that.
He knows that she's somebody, but he doesn't know quite who she is.
And he doesn't know why she knows his name.
But they learn, they learn who they are. But we don't know. We don't know if they're ever intimate with each other or not. She gets shot
It is alluded to.
It's alluded to. That is true. It's alluded to. She gets shot in the stomach at one point.
And that's after she gets shot.
Yeah, after she gets shot, then they get intimate. Then when we see the epilogue at the end of the movie, she has a child.
A 3-year-old little girl.
This has been one of the things that when I got into the discussions with a lot of people, I'm not quite sure what happened there. Some people have argued that the baby was from 60 years ago, and she had been pregnant, that whole time.
Yeah.
And so it was like their love had, carried over this whole period of time, and now was still, still new and fresh and bringing about life.
And I would really like that option if the film hadn't been so ambiguous. If it hadn't created that intimate scene at the lake, and all of a sudden a child would have appeared. Now, given at the moment in time, I probably would have been like, where the heck did this kid come from? But, thinking on it, I think I would like that a lot.
And it wasn't as bad as Superman Returns, where I was like, why is there a kid, though?
Well, yeah, okay.
But I called that
it's a totally different
issue. So,
but
some of the arguments that have been made why it couldn't be a child from the past was, one, why would they send a pregnant person into space?
Yeah. And they would have been doing,
Number two, was she got shot in the stomach.
And he removes the bullet.
Number 3, Vika did a medical scan on her.
Yeah.
And we think, I mean, that not necessarily would have happened, but it might have happened that she showed up pregnant. We don't know what kind of technology they had. Of course, from the other end, arguing was the child from the relationship between the wife and Technician 49 was clones as we know them are sterile. Typically, clones are sterile. And it would probably make sense that the Tet would have created sterile clones so that people weren't, the Jack and Vika couples weren't having children of their own.
Yeah.
Because they were probably eliminating them pretty quickly. We don't know.
Yeah.
So I thought that was.
But there was discussion around if there was sterility, maybe it was just in the females that there was sterility.
There could be just sterility in the females because that would take care of it. I thought it was a little ambiguous, and I didn't think it was ambiguous in an either-or kind of way. I thought it was ambiguous as to neither of these options really makes a whole lot of sense. So.
Well, I think if we take it just at face value at how the movie sets it up, I think we have to say it's a result of that evening at the lake with 49. That's the only thing that the movie really gives us to work our heads around.
Since they talk about the memory wipe, which we know it's not a memory wipe, we know it's just the clones coming into service, we don't know that they have any idea how long they've been alive. The tech could be replacing clones pretty frequently, and nobody would know it.
Yeah, and maybe not
because they have a whole ship full of clones.
Yeah,
it almost sounds like a movie Damon Lindelof wrote. They're not going to explain a lot of things. It's just kind of left
I felt
up to your interpretation.
I felt most things were explained pretty well. Even some things that I thought I kind of questioned when I went online and read back over things. I'm like, oh yeah, they did really explain things pretty well for the most part.
It's no Prometheus.
It's not as good as Prometheus. I don't like it as well as I like Prometheus.
I disagree, but I kind of question whether the child needed to come into existence or not, because the issue still stands of 52 comes back and he loves her. And he, from his voiceover, it sounds like he wants to love this child.
Yeah.
Whether or not the child is there or not, I think 52 still would have sought her out.
Yeah.
So I feel kind of like the child was just like, we're going to throw this at you and make it hard for you to figure out what we were thinking.
But, I mean, it is a nod. Having the child there is a nod that things will go on.
Yes.
That life
continues.
Which is probably the purpose of the child's existence.
Maybe.
I mean, I think it's where the movie has to. I mean, where it has to go for it to not have it, just a nihilistic ending.
At least it has, some semblance of hope.
Yes. Yeah.
So overall, me and Jerry and I both said good and a half. Gina.
Good and a half, somewhere around there.
Good and a half. So it wasn't the epic science fiction return to being a huge blockbuster that Tom Cruise hoped for or thought a lot of people thought it might be, but it did fairly well at the box office.
It's got pretty prominent. It's got pretty promising reviews overall.
Yeah. So it did pretty well. So it's a movie that
it was enjoyable.
If you're a science fiction fan, go check it out. If not, I would maybe wait for the Blu-ray.
I mean, it's hit over 164 million as of last week.
Yes, it's done fairly well at the box office.
Some good IMAX.
And it's done well at the international box office too.
Yeah.
So I think that's just going to about wrap it up for our review of Oblivion, guys.
I think so.
All right.
Alright, so, Jerry, where can we find more of your work on the internet this week?
Well, other than writing reviews on theepicreview.com, I also take lots of pictures of action figures, and I put them on my Flickr account at www.flickr.com/photos/barbecue17.
Miss Gina Wilshire, where can we find your stuff this week?
Hopefully I'll be putting a couple more things up on the site.
On thepicreview.com, and of course we can find your Twitter
at Gina Beaner.
And as for me, you can find all of my work on theepicreview.com and on Twitter at the Real Brad Bell. That's REEL Brad Bell. Remember, you can email us anytime. Just email thepicreview@gmail.com. And remember to like us on Facebook for breaking epic news daily. And until next time, we are out.